The final countdown, Operation Dark Sky. In the not-so-distant future, the world is teetering on the edge of collapse. A global network of satellites, advanced military systems, and sophisticated technologies bind nations together in an intricate web of communication, defense, and power. But what if that network, those very tools designed to keep the world functioning, was turned against the planet? In the cold shadows of geopolitical tensions, one rogue nation prepares to set in motion a series of events that will tear down the fragile peace. North Korea, under the guise of peaceful space exploration, launches a missile that detonates in orbit, knocking out all satellites and throwing the world into chaos. This act of aggression is not a random attack. It's part of a larger, sinister plan that will shift the power balance of the world forever. The story follows Victor Steele, an experienced operative in a covert organization known only as the Agency. Initially tasked with tracking the movements of North Korea's military, Steele quickly discovers that what seemed like a simple mission is, in fact, a far more dangerous conspiracy. As the world falls into technological darkness, Steele must uncover the mastermind behind the attack before it's too late, only to find that the true danger lies not in a missile, but in the shadows that manipulate the fate of nations. The camera opens in a small, dimly lit room, filled with the hum of monitors and the soft tapping of keys on a worn keyboard. Victor Steele sits in front of a screen, his face illuminated by the eerie glow of code and data running in front of him. The steady rhythm of his typing contrasts with the growing unease in his mind. For years, he has worked in the shadows, tracking threats, gathering intel, stopping the chaos before it ever reached the public eye. But this time, something is different. Victor is no stranger to the dark arts of espionage. He's seen the way world leaders play their hand, calculating, always a few moves ahead. But this is unlike anything he's ever encountered. A missile. A single, seemingly innocuous missile launched from North Korea's space agency. And yet that missile, as it ascends into the stratosphere, carries with it the power to destroy not just satellites, but the very foundation of the world order. In the world of espionage, nothing is as it seems, Victor begins, speaking in a low, gritty voice that barely rises above a whisper. What we think of as truth is often the most dangerous lie. I've spent years following the orders of governments, tracking movements, reporting data. I used to believe I understood how things worked, how the system was supposed to function. But as you get deeper, you realize that everything is a lie. Victor's fingers hover over the keyboard, but he pauses for a moment, his mind racing. He scrolls through encrypted files and intercepted communications, images of the missile launch. The missile heads towards space. It ascends. Then, in the dead of night, it detonates. The first wave of destruction is invisible to the naked eye, but the effects are immediate. Satellites in orbit are disabled, one by one. Global communications are severed. The international community is left in the dark. Steele watches as military signals, once constant and reassuring, go quiet. Communications grid, offline. Defense systems, compromised. The world's most powerful weaponry. The satellites that guide everything from military operations to international trade are now useless. The missile strike isn't just an act of war, it's a direct assault on the global order. It's happening, Steele mutters under his breath as the world slips into chaos. But why? Why now? A message pops up on his secure communication line. The agency requires immediate action. We need you on the ground. It's cryptic, yet urgent. Steele's mind sharpens. The agency is a covert group, known only to a select few, with one mission: to prevent global threats from ever reaching the surface. Steele knows what's coming next. He gathers his equipment, guns, ammunition, and a small digital device that holds all his intel, and heads out the door. The world is changing before his eyes. Rising action. As Steele moves through the streets, the atmosphere is tense, like a storm is brewing. It's not just the military personnel who are in motion. Civilians are panicked, their phones useless, their access to the outside world severed. Everything they took for granted is now in question. The world is scrambling to restore order, but without communication, the effort is futile. Steele receives an encrypted transmission from the agency. The missile strike is not just an isolated incident. This was part of a much larger plan. Steele's mind races. His mission has now shifted. What he thought was a single act of aggression was merely a catalyst for a much more insidious agenda. The world's governments are paralyzed. Leaders are locked away in secure locations, their communication lines dead. Military forces are scattered, unable to coordinate. And in the chaos, a shadowy faction begins to make its move. This wasn't just about disabling satellites, Steele realizes as he digs deeper into the agency's intelligence reports. It's about control. Control of the technology. Control of the future. As Steele continues his investigation, he uncovers a startling truth. The missile was only a diversion, a small calculated strike designed to hide a much larger operation. Behind the attack stands a secret global syndicate, a group of elites with the power to manipulate governments, corporations, and military forces. This syndicate is not just interested in destabilizing nations. They want to remake the world in their image. Steele's path leads him to a hidden facility in Siberia, where the syndicate's influence is most concentrated. But the closer he gets to the truth, the more dangerous his mission becomes. The syndicate's operatives are everywhere, watching, waiting. Steele's every move is under surveillance, and his enemies are not just human. They're cybernetic agents, part human, part machine, designed to track and eliminate anyone who dares to uncover their plan. The world, as Steele soon realizes, is no longer governed by nations. It's controlled by those who hold the keys to the technology that shapes society. And those keys are now in the hands of a global cabal that plans to bring the world to its knees. Mid-story tension. In a series of brutal confrontations, Steele comes face to face with the terrifying reality of this new world order. High-tech assassins, cybernetically enhanced soldiers, and drone swarms hunt him down as he tries to piece together the puzzle. Each encounter leaves Steele more battered, but more determined. He can't let the syndicate win. He can't let the world descend into an era of global digital dictatorship. Steele navigates through dark alleyways and backdoor networks, all while evading his relentless pursuers. In one harrowing sequence, Steele barely escapes an ambush in a crowded marketplace, dodging bullets and narrow escapes through tight corridors. The sound of combat echoes in his ears, but he doesn't stop. He's in too deep now, and there's no turning back. Through a combination of resourcefulness and sheer will, Steele manages to break into one of the syndicate's primary data centers, hidden beneath the icy Siberian tundra. What he uncovers shocks him to his core. The syndicate has developed a technology capable of controlling not just satellites, but all digital systems, military, financial, and even civilian. With this technology, they can manipulate the world's leaders, orchestrating global events from behind the scenes. They've got the power to make or break nations. Steele realizes, his mind racing as he watches the digital files scroll across his screen. And they've already started pulling the strings. Climax. Steele's final mission takes him to the heart of the syndicate's operations, a heavily fortified underground bunker in the Russian wilderness. Inside, Steele discovers the terrifying truth. The missile strike was only the beginning of a much darker plan. The syndicate's ultimate goal is to trigger a world war, one they can control. They've planted the seeds of chaos, and now they intend to reap the rewards. But Steele isn't alone. The architect, the shadowy mastermind behind the syndicate, watches from behind a glass wall. His identity remains a mystery, his face hidden behind a digital mask that shifts with the flicker of light. He is the one who has orchestrated this global chaos, pulling the strings from the shadows. The architect reveals his plan, to use the global unrest created by the satellite strike to ignite a war that will reshape the world. In the midst of this conflict, the syndicate will step forward as the saviors, offering a new world order in exchange for absolute power. You were just a pawn in this game, Steele. The architect sneers, his voice distorted by the digital mask. We were never after control of a nation. We were after control of the world. In a tense, final showdown, Steele fights his way through waves of cybernetic soldiers, each more deadly than the last. The architect is watching, controlling everything from his secure station. Steele, with his expertise and sheer determination, finally manages to disable the system that controls the global network. The countdown to global collapse begins, and Steele is forced to make a heart-stopping choice. Sacrifice himself to stop the architect's plan, or risk the destruction of everything he holds dear. As the world watches in stunned silence, Steele's final act of bravery sends shockwaves across the globe. The agency's mission has been fulfilled, but the world is far from safe. The battle for the future is far from over, and Steele knows that there will always be those who seek to control the world from the shadows. The camera pulls back as the dust settles, leaving behind a world on the brink of change. The war for control of technology, and by extension the fate of humanity, is just beginning. Deepening suspicion. As the shadows of the unknown close in, Victor Steele's instincts sharpen. The unexpected destruction of the global communications grid isn't merely a military strike. It's a calculated move to bring the world to its knees. Yet Steele knows that the missile strike, the launch in space, is not the point of origin. It's just a distraction, a decoy for something much darker. This wasn't supposed to happen, Steele mutters to himself as he's briefing his handler, a woman known only as Sierra, inside the agency's underground headquarters. Sierra's expression is hard to read as usual. She's the type who doesn't crack under pressure, but even Steele can tell that the mission has escalated. "You're right, this wasn't a mistake," she says, locking eyes with him. "You're about to uncover something even worse than you realize." Steele slams his fist onto the table, frustration building. That missile strike has been timed perfectly. It's not just about North Korea. There's a global syndicate orchestrating everything from the shadows. It's a chess game, and we've been playing into their hands all along. Sierra nods, her gaze unwavering. "You're on the right track, but we're dealing with something far more dangerous than a single rogue nation. They've already infiltrated the highest levels of power. You need to go deeper into the heart of this." Steele's mind races. This isn't just an international crisis. This is a conspiracy so vast it spans continents and defies every known boundary of military strategy and cyber warfare. The agency's dark secrets. Victor Steele's next move takes him to an abandoned military base in the Siberian wilderness, rumored to be a key site in the syndicate's operation. The cold winds howl outside, but inside the facility it's eerily quiet. Steel doors creak as he steps into the facility, weapon drawn. His mission is clear. Find out who is behind this operation, uncover the technology that controls the future, and neutralize the threat. Steele navigates through the darkened hallways, his senses heightened. The air smells metallic, and each step echoes ominously. The walls are lined with old machinery, data terminals covered in dust. Yet, as he delves deeper, he begins to hear the low hum of something alive, something watching him. Without warning, an explosion rips through the corridor, and Steele is thrown to the ground. He rolls instinctively, returning fire as the threat reveals itself. A group of elite mercenaries equipped with advanced cybernetic implants and lethal weapons. These aren't just soldiers, they're human-machine hybrids, designed to neutralize anyone who dares threaten the Syndicate's operations. Steele fights back with calculated precision, using the environment to his advantage. He darts behind cover, his mind racing as he plans his next move. The mercenaries are fast, relentless, and highly trained. But Steele is relentless too. He takes down one of the cybernetic soldiers with a well-placed shot to the head, sending sparks flying from the implant's exposed circuits. The others advance, but Steele isn't done yet. The tension mounts as Steele uses every trick he knows, engaging in close-quarters combat and darting through the shadows. Each mercenary he eliminates brings him one step closer to the core of the Syndicate's plan. After a fierce struggle, Steele emerges victorious, his body bruised, but his resolve stronger than ever. He finally reaches the command center of the facility, a high-tech hub filled with screens displaying data about the global network. As Steele surveys the room, a chilling thought crosses his mind. This is where it all begins. The Syndicate's control over the world's military, financial, and communication systems is centralized here. The satellite strike, the missiles, the cybernetic soldiers, it was all part of a much larger plan. The face of the architect. In the center of the control room, Steele finally comes face to face with the true mastermind, the architect. The man, or rather the entity, is seated behind a digital mask, his identity completely concealed. His voice is distorted, but Steele can sense the confidence emanating from him. "You're too late, Steele," the architect sneers, his voice laced with cold contempt. The world is already changing. The strike on the satellites was just the beginning. I've already won. Steele's grip tightens around his weapon as he steps closer, undeterred. I'll stop you. This ends now. But the architect merely laughs, his form flickering on the holographic screens surrounding him. You misunderstand, Steele. You are but a player in a game that's much bigger than you. This world, this system, it's fragile. It was always meant to collapse, and now I'm the one who controls its rebirth. Steele's anger boils, but he knows this isn't just a battle of brawn. It's a battle of wits, a war for the future of humanity. With every word, the architect reveals more of his sinister plan, the control of technology, the reshaping of nations, the manipulation of global events to create a new world order. You think you can stop me? The architect taunts, his fingers dancing over the holographic controls. You can't even begin to understand the power at my disposal. I control everything. The satellites, the weapons, the economy. I am the future. Steele's mind races. This isn't just about a missile strike. This is about control, the ability to dictate the fate of the entire world. The cybernetic war. As Steele fights to gain control of the central system, the architect activates a secondary defense mechanism. A swarm of drones, each carrying a deadly payload. The room is filled with a whir of machinery as thousands of drones are deployed, circling like vultures, ready to destroy anything in their path. Steele's eyes widen as the drones close in, but he doesn't falter. His body moves with the grace of a trained assassin as he dodges and weaves through the barrage of drones. Each shot he takes is calculated, each move precise. The stakes have never been higher. In a stunning moment of realization, Steele understands that the drones are not just weapons. They are the key to dismantling the syndicate's global network. The drones are linked to a central control hub, and if Steele can gain access to the hub, he can disable the entire operation. But the path to the control hub is guarded by the last line of defense, the Titans. These cybernetic soldiers are far beyond anything Steele has faced before. Their bodies are covered in reinforced armor, and their enhanced strength makes them formidable opponents. A brutal, high-octane battle ensues. Steele fights with everything he has, his tactical expertise, his raw strength, and his will to survive. But these Titans are relentless. They overpower him, pushing him to his limits. The pain is excruciating, but Steele refuses to give in. With a final surge of adrenaline, he manages to disable the control hub, causing the drones to malfunction and crash to the ground. The architect watches from his command station, frustration and anger clear on his face. Steele has won this round, but the architect knows the war is far from over. The final act. The countdown begins. Steele's final mission is now clear. Destroy the architect's control center and prevent the syndicate from launching a global war. But time is running out. The world is on the brink of collapse, and only Steele can stop it. In an epic final showdown, Steele confronts the architect in a high-tech battle that spans the dark, cold halls of the facility. The architect's power is nearly infinite, but Steele's will is stronger. With one final calculated strike, Steele disables the central system, sending shockwaves through the global network. The architect is defeated, his empire crumbling. The world begins to rebuild. The lights flicker back on, satellites are restored, and the communication grid is re-established. But the scars of the battle remain. Steele walks away from the wreckage, battered but unbroken. He's seen the future, and he knows that it's far from certain. There will always be those who seek to control the world from the shadows. But Steele also knows that as long as he's alive, the fight for freedom will never end. This war is just beginning, Steele whispers as he disappears into the night, knowing that the battle for the world's future has only just begun.